Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing today? Can you guys hear me okay?
Hello, yes, I can hear you fine.
Lovely. Thank you.
Hello.
All right. Let me just, we'll come on in. All right. So, how is everybody's day going? And let me share my screen because I'm always good for starting and not doing that. Let me do that part. Everybody see my screen okay? Hopefully you
Yes, I
don't
can see your screen. Yes.
see the noise, hear too much the noise of the gas guy is here at the same time. So hopefully you don't hear that too much in the background. All right, welcome everybody to day two. Super excited to be here with you all again, sharing some insights on what it's going to take to transition from either with your host or completely independent or to a hybrid model. Before we jump into day two, what I'd like to just bring everyone's attention to, make sure I did actually put that in the chat. Everybody should have gotten and received the workbook for day two. I've also included that in the chat, so you can just check there. Hopefully everybody is able to chat. So can you guys just confirm that you can chat? Because I will be checking the chat while we're going along. Are you guys able to chat? I'm gonna make sure it's not locked down. I think I've yes, perfect. All right, perfect. So go ahead and download or open up the workbook for day two. We're going to be going through that today. And again, before we jump into day two's content, I'd love to hear from you all, either in chat or you can come off of mute and let me know. How was day one for you all? And did you guys finish the homework assignment and kind of what did you come up with relative to what we discussed yesterday? Yesterday was all about your vision, making sure that you established your why. What were some of the big things that you took away from yesterday? Who would like to share? Nobody. You guys are such a quiet bunch. I am not the kind of presenter that just does one-way communication. So I love it for you guys to let me know. If you missed, that's no problem. You can catch it in the replay. But there are some people who were on yesterday. Please share and let me know kind of what your biggest takeaways were from yesterday's discussion. All right, so we've got a pretty silent bunch. We have about 10 people on. And no one wants to share kind of what their takeaway was.
I'll share a little bit for the part that I was before I had to drop. It was really just about recognizing and writing down um, really the people that I want to serve and making sure I stick to that, right? It hit hard when you were saying just because you get a request for, it may be a family, and I want to concentrate on groups, like I don't have to always take it. So that really kind of hit home with me.
That's good. Thank you for sharing. I know it's hard for people to want to open up, and again, I'm not a one-way kind of communicator, so I do appreciate you sharing. I think that was Katisha. Was that you, Katisha? I think that was your voice.
Yep, that was me.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. So somebody also wrote in comments that coming up with the strong why statement. Absolutely. And that really was the spirit of yesterday because, if you're doing this just because you only want to get something out of it and you don't want to give back to your clients, this is again, being in business requires a lot of your soul and a lot of you. And so you really have to have a really strong why. So that was really what yesterday's focus was making sure that you guys are shifting from, I just want to have a job and I want to, control everything, but really creating a vision for your business that your clients can align to and you yourself can align to, just like Katisha shared. You don't have to say, and you shouldn't say yes to everybody, because if you've ever dealt with somebody that you took on that, there was a sixth sense that said you shouldn't, all money is not good money. So yesterday was really about shifting from a work mentality into a CEO mentality. And it really starts with having a strong vision. Today, we're going to talk about credibility and what that looks like for you as a travel advisor, moving from a hosted model where you're sort of getting implied credibility from your host to creating that sort of independent credibility yourself. So let's dive in. The first thing is that we've got some myth busters as to what credibility means in this industry and or really as a business owner. When I first started in the travel space, again, my story was I was recruited by a host agency that does a lot of recruiting, still does. And I was under the impression that if I went and I took a bunch of supplier trainings and I got those certificates, because I am a very type A personality. So I like acquiring, I like creating task lists just so I can check them off. And so those certificates that I received from the suppliers made me feel like I would get this sort of instant credibility with the people who saw them when I posted them on my Facebook page, on my Instagram page, and I thought that would get me instant credibility. Unfortunately, it doesn't necessarily, because if you're not in the industry, most of your clients don't care. Some clients care, but most of the certifications that we get from suppliers, they really don't. Like, the average person doesn't really understand why it's so important. I also erroneously, again, I'm a big person to try and teach people what I've learned or share what I've learned and the lessons that I've learned. I thought that if I had a large following, that would give me business success, that, grow the following, and that's going to equal instant fame, instant success. That's going to make me have a lot of buyers and everything is going to be copacetic. So what I quickly found out is that's also not the case either. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're credible. I had a client many years ago told me that they had created a Facebook group, and I'll never forget, and it was around Las Vegas budget deals. And I think she said she had like multiple thousands of people. Like, I think she was over 10,000 people in her Facebook group. And she was frustrated because nobody was actually booking trips. And so this is a great example. Just because you have a really good group size of a group doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be successful at selling travel. There really is a strategy around how you connect to your followers, and we'll talk about that. This is probably one of the biggest myths that I will put is low prices. Yesterday, when we were on yesterday, some of you all shared that you wanted to be a budget dealer. You wanted to provide the best deals possible for travel. And you think to yourself, if I give away my services for free, if I'm the cheapest that's out there, that's going to make people want to work with me more, and I'm going to get more clients. And the reality is that people don't make decisions solely based on price. So you being an amazing bomb.com travel advisor, trying to build it on the price, the low price point, isn't going to necessarily get you more clients. And that if I grow, like some of you may be actually recruiting, and I also I never really was a strong recruiter in terms of travel agents, but I also thought if I had like a big support team in my business, that would give me, the ability to have more expertise, because I had more people to work with, or to help prop me up. And that really is not the case either. And so we're really going to talk about all of that. Is that this last one is really a good one, particularly for people who are new in the business, and you get a couple of sales and you think, oh my gosh, I'm in there like swimwear. I've got some sales and now I am on my way. And don't get me wrong, it feels really good to get those first couple of sales. However, it doesn't necessarily equate to the fact that you're going to be able to maintain that level of success ongoing if you don't put in place a way to get clients ongoing. All right. So the people that you know that are in your warm market, they're not going to always travel or need to travel. So you need to have some way to have continuous wins, so to speak. So these are a lot of the credibility myths that I have heard over the years working with you all. And so what I want to do is really talk about the two faces of credibility in our business. One is internal credibility. We'll talk about what that looks like, and then external. So internal credibility is really within your business and the relationships that your clients don't see. So this is really going to be primarily built around your supplier being credible to the industry, right? So your suppliers, other partners that you may work with, and then external is what you show to the public, what you show to your clients, how they look at you, and how you can position them in the way that you want to show up in your business. And I don't really mean that to be unauthentically. So I'm not talking about putting on a fake face, but really, how do you show up the way that you want to show up and attract the type of client that you want to do? So let's talk about how we make that happen. First is internal credibility. The first is that you all have to form a business. If you've partnered with your host agency, you've signed a contract with your host agency, and you've never done anything to actually formalize your business, that's going to be step one in establishing credibility internally, like with other suppliers within the city, within the government, like just everywhere in terms of actually forming a business. And what that really means is that you gotta like you gotta put your stake in the ground, and you gotta say, my name is X, whatever the name of your business is. You've got to, if you want to become a LLC, or if you want to be a sole proprietorship, you need to actually form. You need to get a business account. You need to do all the things that make you a legitimate business. Now, many of you guys are doing, and I'm certainly not talking about, because if you're on this call, it is my hope that this is not your situation. But how many of you guys have not actually formed? Like, you don't have a business name, you don't have a DBA, you don't, and again, this is a safe space that you're in. This is not intended to judge, but that's the first step. Like, I actually did a workshop with my community last week, and had a lot of people sign up for a trial for our software, and they don't have a business name, they don't have a website, they don't have their domain. These are step one activities that you want to do when it comes to actually establishing credibility. At the time of us doing this challenge, next month, all of the email host providers are going to block sending email in mass if you are using your business with a Gmail or an at Yahoo. So what that means is, like, if your business is Sunday's Travel at Gmail, and you want to send an email to all of your emails, they're going to block your traffic, because again, they don't consider you to be a legitimate business sending bulk email to your business customers. This is going to be a major blow to a lot of travel advisors who have not actually got a business email, and they're sending out email marketing campaigns. Let that not be you. If you're in any of the 5 seller of travel states, that would actually, it's 4 now. I keep saying 5, but it's 4 now. So if you are doing business in Florida, California, Washington State, Hawaii, those states require that you have a seller of travel license. It's not difficult to acquire. You are most likely operating underneath your host agency's seller of travel license. But if you want to transition to your own independent fully, and you're in those states, or you have clients that are in those states, you will need to get that license. It's not difficult. It's just another part of doing business. Any people on the challenge today that are from any of those states? If so, just type in the comments. Yes, I'm in California, Florida, Washington. So again, the 4 states are Florida, California, Washington State, and Hawaii. You will need to get a special it's called the seller of travel license for those states. Even if you're with your host agency and you're doing business, you're selling travel to people in those states, you actually, I think in Florida and in California, I know for sure in Florida, even when you're with your host agency, you still need to get an independent seller of travel license. I think it's $50 in Florida. I don't remember if it's California, but I'm almost positive California has that as well. So just because you don't know doesn't mean that you're not still responsible for it. So there are industry requirements by state for you to actually operate and sell travel in those states. You need to be familiar with those laws and regulations. Number 2 is really around supplier relationships. You really need, if you want to be credible to suppliers and you want to get commissions from suppliers, you want to be able to leverage so what's the next for me? Yep, absolutely. So if the states consider you doing business if you're selling to any of their residents. So if you've got a large client base in Florida or California, and you're in Texas, let's say, you intend to sell to people who are in Florida or California, legally you need to have a seller of travel in those states. Now, hybrid model, we'll talk a little bit about kind of what makes sense to do that. If you aren't actually living in those states, but you want to sell in those states, a hybrid model may be a good path for you. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the upcoming, either today or in the upcoming sessions. Suppliers will not pay you commission. Some of them will, some of them don't require that you do this, but most of the ones that are worth their weight in gold, if you want to do business with them, they require that you have step 2, which is step 1 and step 2 oftentimes, because to register with the suppliers, they require that you have either a W-4. I always call it W-4. I never remember which state tax it is, but there's an actual form that you have to submit, W-9, that's what it is. You have to submit a W-9, which is a business form that you submit that shows that you're a legitimate tax-paying business, and you need to have some industry credential. Now, there's really 2 available credentials. There's more than that, but for most small business owners and most independent solopreneur travel businesses, trying to get the larger ones is not a requirement. The 2 options for you in terms of industry credentials is your CLIA or your True license. CLIA is the Cruise Line International Association. It is around cruise, but pretty much the entire travel industry and suppliers recognize you having an agency CLIA number in order to represent yourself as a legitimate travel business. The other option is a True license, and it is also a legitimate industry credential. Most suppliers will also recognize that license available, and that's offered by CCRA. The only problem with, and again, I personally haven't had a problem with True license, but I have talked to advisors that have had a problem with True license credentials when it comes to working with international outside of the United States, particularly beyond the Caribbean, right? So if you're looking at Europe, you're looking at other parts of the world, True is not necessarily recognized as an industry credential in all of the parts of the world in the same way that CLIA. So if I had to size up which one I would get, I would invest in CLIA if particularly I was going to be doing, I wanted to partner with suppliers that were beyond North America or this side of the world. So that's something for you to consider. Very easy to get those credentials. So we're going to talk a little bit about each one of those. And then step 3 is really around your supplier relationship. So let's dive into some things that you need to know. You need to legally form. I've already said this. You need to legally form. You need to legally form in your state, whatever that looks like, right? So every state has legal formation requirements. And, I have formed a business in Texas and Georgia, so I know those states specifically. I don't know all of the 50 states. What I do recommend is that you get a service if you're not clear about the rules when you go to the state's state site. You need to adhere to the seller of travel requirements. I get travel advisors asking me all the time, well, I'm in Texas, but I had a client that was in Florida. Is it okay to sell travel to them without a license? And my legal answer is always going to be no. My legal answer is no, because the seller of travel license requirements for Florida says that you need to have a license in that state in order to sell to their clients. So you need to, this is the cost of doing business. Like I said, it's really not that difficult to get it. You just need to go to those states that you intend. I'm going to give you a good scenario of when it's a good. I've had clients who live in Nevada. Nevada is right next to California, right? They're literally, a lot of their friends live in California. A lot of their people are, who they attract are in California. California is probably one of, out of the 4 states that require a seller of travel. They're the most expensive state, and they're the most difficult state to just deal with, just generally. And so it's a little bit more expensive to get your seller of travel in California. But my recommendation to her is, if you feel like you're going to be doing a lot of business in those states, you need to just go ahead and bite the bullet. Do you need to get seller of travel in all of the 4 states? No, you don't. We are in an you guys are online businesses, and your reach, depending on how you decide to attract traffic, could be all across the United States. I don't recommend that you get seller travel in all 4 states simultaneously. If I had to sequence the how I would get seller travel, for me, I would get Florida first, then I would get California, and then I would get maybe Hawaii and Washington if those were markets that I was doing. The only reason why I picked Florida is because I love cruising. I love specializing in cruise travel. And so that's a major port. A lot of suppliers are out of Florida. So it just was the natural thing for me to do. But again, your situation may be different. Number 3. Now, number 3, this third bullet really shocks a lot of people. A lot of people are surprised by what I'm about to say. So just write it down and take this away and go to your host agency, because I assure you, if you are with a host agency and you do not have insurance, and I'm talking about travel specific insurance, and our travel specific insurance is called errors and omission. E&O insurance. Many host agencies will tell you that, yes, we have an errors and omissions insurance policy, and yes, you are covered. However, what they don't tell you is that they most likely have $1 million or a $2 million policy. And let's say you're with a host agency that has thousands of sub-agents underneath them. Their policy is only going to cover 2 major things that I want you to be aware of. One, it's only going to cover them up to the maximum amount of their policy, which is usually about 2 million. And second, unless you are a named business on their policy, it's not likely that you have full protection. If you are in business, regardless of if you're independent or if you are with a host agency, you need to have number 3 bullet. You need to have an errors and omission insurance policy in the name of your business. You also may need to also have commercial insurance, which has nothing to do with you. We have both policies because our business is broader than just travel, but commercial insurance protects your business against non-error type of omissions or error or non-travel related expenses. We have a coaching business, we have a school, we have a lot of other things. So if you have a broader business, you may also need to get commercial insurance. Number 4 is another bullet that also surprises hosted and people who are transition. Your host agency likely did not provide you terms and conditions. They didn't, maybe they provided you when I started in the industry back in, 2015, our host agency gave us a PDF document that was a credit card authorization that we were supposed to get everybody to sign. Fast forward, what is it? That 2016, 15, that was 9 years ago. Was that 9 years ago? Like, I can't even do the math in my head. 9 years ago, like the market, the world has changed so much in 9 years. If you are like physically getting signatures and you're faxing, like you're probably running clients off because you really need to be electronically capturing a signature. You need an IP address. Like there's all this stuff now that you need to be able to fight the fraud that we are exposed to as travel advisor. You need to have terms that, and to get an insurance policy, that's one of the things you're going to ask you is, do you have terms and conditions? Do you have a process by which you define refunds, how you give money back? Do you give money back? Do you have a policy around? What about cancellations? You need to protect your business. Again, if this is not something that you're serious about, this structure and compliance is probably not something that you are so concerned about. You're not in the right space if you're not thinking about these considerations in your business. Step 1 required in terms of credibility. You need to have legal protection, you need to have insurance protection, and you need to adhere to the laws of the state, and you need to actually form the business. And, along with that, once you form the business, Uncle Sam wants it's cut, and you just need to do all these things, right? So this is really around business structure and compliance. Please post in the chat if you have any comments about this one. But this one is probably the one that I see a lot of new advisors and even long-term advisors that haven't established this kind of setup in their business. All right, next one is industry credentials. So we did talk about this. So to get your CLIA and your TRUE license, it really is, it's an application process. It's some money and it's an application. TRUE, I'm going to start with the more difficult of the two. TRUE's application process, they require 2 forms of referrals. They require that you be in business for a certain length of time. Their requirements are a little bit more strict, I suspect. I mean, I've been with CLIA for years now. I suspect CLIA may or may not. I don't know. I don't know what CLIA is going to do, but CLIA has been the same for quite some time. The requirements for CLIA are not as strict as TRUE. In terms of credibility, like I said, which one is better? Besides the requirements that each of them require, and I'm going to talk about CLIA's requirements in just a second, in terms of what you get as an agent, I think CLIA's benefits are better because I like Marriott, and CLIA is the only provider for you to get Marriott rewards. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what that is. So let me talk about what the credential requirements are for CLIA. To get your CLIA agency license, all you have to do is submit an application. Like, you just need to submit your application and pay their fee. Their fee is $3.99 a year. You pay that annually. You have to submit some paperwork about your business, and literally they approve you within like 2 days, and you have an agency license. So the barrier to get your agency license is not a lot. When I started in this industry, my upline said it was like 15,000. Like, did you guys get those kind of numbers too when you were recruited? That it was cost prohibitive for you to start your own agency, that it was so expensive. They talked about, you needed to get an ARC license, you needed to do all this rigmarole, and they didn't talk about the things that were really important, which is the errors and omission insurance, the terms and conditions. They talked about the credentials that are not critical for credibility with suppliers. Many people talk about IATA. And if you're new to the industry and you don't know what these terms are, rest assured you will over time. Really, an IATA is a way to create a credential, but it requires that you have sales volume in order to get your IATA. It's not necessary for you to have your IATA to register with suppliers. For you to do business and sell travel, you need to have supplier relationships. So the critical path for you to register with your suppliers is True or CLIA. IATA is something you can acquire later. It's not a requirement to do business. Does that make sense? So CLIA, barrier, you just need $399 and you need your business set up. That's it. To get your true license, you need 2 referrals. You need to be in business, I think, at least 6 months, and you need to pay their fee. And I think they just went up last year, at the end of last year, they went up on their fee. Now, those are the 2 ways to get the license. Once you get the license, in terms of benefits, each of them have a set of benefits that are good and bad, depending on the type of advisor you are. What I like about True CCRA is if you are a person that needs connection and you want to go to like a monthly meeting of other travel advisors who are in the industry and you want that sort of camaraderie, True has it. They have local chapters where you can plug in to the community. So they have this sort of locality connection that CLIA does not. CLIA has their CLIA 360. They have a what is the word that I'm looking for? It's not a seminar, but they always struggle with the word. They have their industry annual. They also have training that you can plug into. So what is it? What is the word? It's their 360 and it's their convention. It's not even called a convention, but they do this every year. They have a convention. You can join, attend their convention. They do ship inspections. They have industry related topics that they do every year. And so you can plug into that annually. I recommend plugging into that, even if you're not a member of CLIA, just because if you're selling cruises, it's the annual cruise place to be. There's another convention that's called Cruise World. They don't have a credential, but CLIA's credential, their event is one night. So that's one of the other benefits. Like, so if you need to be connected and you want to be connected to people, True has that ability. CLIA, not so much. They don't have like the local chapters and that kind of stuff. Another benefit that I really like I said, CLIA hands down wins for me because I don't need that sort of local connection. But what they do have is Marriott, which if you are a lover of Marriott and all of their brands, they have the partnership with Marriott. So if you get your CLIA, your agency CLIA, or even if you have your independent CLIA license, you can sign up and get Marriott as a travel advisor. You can sign up, take Marriott's training, get your annual continuing education trainings, and any Marriott property that they have, if they have availability, you get access to their hotel excellence. You get like 50% off the room rates, as long as they have availability. And I'm telling you, I've used it in the pinch. Like I've been, missed a flight, had to stay in Florida on the way to a cruise, and it was awesome. It was awesome. Like I stayed at a really nice resort in Florida that was normally, I don't know, like $300-400 a night, and it was like $150 a night, and we just needed to stay there overnight. But again, the ability to do that through Marriott and their Hotel Excellence program, that's only available in CLIA. There's a lot of other partnerships that CLIA has. I'm not a spokesperson for either one of these vendors. I'm just giving you my take on like the benefits. So what I would recommend for you all is, if you're thinking about becoming independent, and is go to both of these sites, size them up, look at the benefits, determine which one's the best option for you. Because for you to go to the next step, you need to have 1 and 2 before you start to register with suppliers. Is that the price for an independent? I think so. Lisa, you did not get an agency license. You got your independent CLIA license, which is hosted by your host agency. So your host agency you are registered with CLIA through your host. So you don't have your own agency account. And if you want to be independent, you want your own agency account so that you can do what we're just about to go over next, which is in order for you to get commissions, the whole value that your host agency has brought to the table is you don't need to do all this stuff, right? You don't need to register with suppliers. You don't need to you don't need to do anything except for just go to your host agency and say, give me an account with Royal Caribbean. I need a login for so and so. I need a login for all these suppliers, and your host agency goes and creates those account IDs for you, gets you signed up. You never had to talk to the suppliers to get your account established. You didn't have to establish a relationship beforehand. Your host agency did that on your behalf. If you want to become independent, this responsibility now transfers to you. Now, some of you guys are new to the business, and you may or may not be like, why would I do this? If you're new to the business and you have zero travel experience, this is all great information. I don't recommend that you go and just unless of course you've started a business, you're not put off by any of the things, you're ready to jump in. I would say it takes a good 4 to 6 weeks to get all this stuff established, right? You can be doing some other stuff while you get it established, but once to get all the suppliers, if you are somebody who can step over that fear, then I say go independent with some sort of support on the back end. But if you're like, oh my God, right, then this credibility conversation may be something that you want to add it to your list to evaluate if you're ready to go independent fully or not, even in the beginning of your business. So step 3 is all about your suppliers. So there are really 2 types of suppliers that you'll work with. You'll work with commission-based suppliers, and then this concept of net price / wholesale suppliers. I like to really equate it to, let's talk about what commission-based suppliers are. If you are independent, or if you're with the host agency right now and you want to book a cruise on Carnival, you are already going to get 16% of that minus the NCFs. And that rate is already negotiated with the host agency and Carnival, as is all rates negotiated between the host agency and the supplier. That commission that you get is a negotiated, right? Many of the suppliers, particularly in the cruise industry, they have sales thresholds for you to get. If you're going to become independent, immediately you're going to be in that 10% threshold because you need to have $1 million in gross sales to usually get to the next tier. Now, every cruise line is not the same. Every supplier is not the same. If you are not a person that likes the numbers, being independent isn't for you, because in this business, this is a numbers game. Understanding how the numbers impact you is very critical because you don't get 100% of anything when it comes to being in the travel business. So understanding the commission loss that you may be getting from going host to independent is going to be important. But I will say that loss is really not that big. So let's say you've been with your host agency for a number of years. I think some people have been with their host agency, have been in the business for 2+ years. And you've been, you've been booking travel and you've been specializing in cruise and you've been smart. You've really kept your cruise, your cruise booking down to a couple of vendors, right? And you're only really booking it through, let's say, Royal. That's been your primary supplier. Can you go become independent? They're immediately going to put you in the lowest tier. But if you can demonstrate to them that you already have this historical booking, go to the table and negotiate, right? So This is what is so important. Everything is negotiable. If you have the history of your bookings and the volume that you've done, go to the table and show them, listen, I've been booking this amount of volume and I'm at your next tier and I need you to move me up. They will consider it. So don't think just because you transition that all of your history, you don't get to bring that with you. You should and could bring your history booking, particularly if you've kept your ship tight and you've been booking consistently with a particular supplier. You can absolutely show them the history and what you've been capable of. Really, on commission based, these are suppliers that pay you for utilizing their properties, right? Vacation Express is an example. Cruise lines are an example. All the hotels are an example. Resorts are examples. Tour operators that pay you. The benefit of utilizing commission based suppliers is they do a lot of the legwork for you. It's easier to communicate with them. They usually have sites that make it easy to book with you, and the upfront work is less. So, working with commission based, you already know it's going to be X number of percentage. You're already going to get that. You work with them, and that's it, right? It's an easier kind of thing. But what do you give up for that? What you give up for that is money. You don't have the ability, because usually the commission is already including their markup, and you don't have a lot of room for profitability in a commission. It's going to be whatever you get from the vendor, and that's pretty much what you're going to get. So commission-based is great. I love commission-based suppliers, but again, I have less wiggle room in terms of my profit margins when I'm working with solely commission-based suppliers. Now there's this concept of net-based, which is the suppliers don't pay you anything. You work with them and they give you a wholesale rate. I like to use this example because most people can relate to it. If you're selling t-shirts, you go buy the t-shirt from a vendor, and let's say the t-shirt costs you $10 and you mark it up for $20, right? That $10 spread is yours to keep. The same concept applies in the travel industry. You just need to get access to those suppliers. You got to have credibility for you to be able to work with those suppliers. You have more control over your profit margin, because what you're really doing when you're working with these vendors is you're trying to make sure that they can deliver on the experience. Their wholesale pricing is competitive to any other like supplier, and that you're able to negotiate with them. Right. So if you're comfortable with this, all day long, I like working with net-based. Now, drawback to working with net-based is they're not in it to make, like, it's not all wrapped up in a bow like it is. Some of them are, like, some of them are getting savvier, and they are making the technology and the interaction with advisors easier to do. But for the most part, net-based, you got to communicate with them via email. You got to be on WhatsApp, because particularly if you're dealing with them internationally, any international vendors, you got to be able to communicate in non-traditional ways and get comfortable with that. Sometimes English can be a barrier. Not everybody is English speaking as their first language. So you just have to be more flexible. And if you're selling and you love travel, different cultures should be a part of your being. What I do find, though, is travel advisors, particularly American travel advisors, are not very culturally tolerant. And so this is something to consider when you're dealing with net-based. There is way more price flexibility, way more ability for you to make larger margins, but you do have to have some cultural flexibility, and you do have just a lot more control over the price point. What both of these have in common is that you have to set it up. You have to set up and you have to develop the relationship. That means you normally have to register with the supplier as an agency. You have to provide them credentials. You have to establish a relationship. Usually you have to sign some, and I use the word contract loosely, but they have some terms and conditions that you need to sign up for. You have to do that. However, once you do it, it's done. Like I've never had to go back. And what I do have to do is keep up with with all the emails that I get. Again, I am registered with a larger volume of suppliers because we do host agencies to as they start off. But for you all, I recommend like signing up when you get to the stage for a choice, a very choice select. Your host agency is signed up with hundreds of suppliers. Do you need to do the same thing? Absolutely not. Sign up with the suppliers that you love to work with or that you want to investigate. Keep it small and manageable. Sign up with them, be done with it, and then utilize them. Develop strong relationships with them. Make sure you understand who their salesperson is. Who do you call when stuff doesn't go right? Like who do you call when you need a perk and you need an extra something for your client? Like that's really the supplier relationship that you want to build. If you don't have any experience doing that, this is where I think you may want to also add to your considerations. Is it time? Should I focus on that first before I go completely independent? All right, so let's talk about how do you bridge the internal, which we've been talking about, this sort of internal credibility with external. And so really the focus for you in this regard is that you've got to align your operations with your image. So how do you want to show up? So yesterday when I said, what is the vision of your business and what that looks like, you've got to make sure that that you've aligned your business processes to the way that you want your clients to experience. Because again, if you've partnered with ratchet suppliers, your clients are going to know, right? If they have horrible experiences because you're not doing the due diligence with your suppliers, your external credibility is going to suffer from that. You've got to be able to take your vision that you want and the experience that you want for your clients, and you need to be able to bridge that between who you work with from your suppliers and make sure there's a match on your vision and that your clients are getting that same experience. If they're not, it's time to switch it out. All right. In your flow, the way that you do things, the way that your clients interact with you is something also that you've got to do. You've got to make sure that you have in place. So really, when I talk about external credibility, it's really about the client experience. Is that going to be seamless, or is it disconnected? Is it hodgepodge? Is it painful? You know, I told you guys, I think I told you yesterday. If I didn't, let me tell you the story. When I was signing up with, it was one of the cruise lines. It was Princess, to be exact, because I still don't forget this. Like some years ago, I signed up with Princess as an agency, and Princess required me to fax in the application or like the W-9 and some other thing. I was like, a fax? Like what? Why do I have to fax this in? I was like, this is ridiculous. So I'm thinking to myself, if you're requiring faxing, what are you requiring my clients to do? Needless to say, I have not booked, and I shouldn't judge them, but the experience that you have with the supplier is most likely going to translate to the experience that your clients may have to a supplier. That your clients may have. They're going to be on the ship. They may need to have some records. What's that experience going to be like? So it's important that you understand every touch point that your client has, that you understand what that's going to look like. I try to almost 100% prevent my clients from having to interact with my suppliers, except for when they're in travel. And the reason I do that is because the suppliers are crazy. The way that they do stuff in our industry is archaic. Like the way that suppliers, I think this industry is probably it's the least technically advanced industry out on the planet right now. I'm sure there's other industries, but I only know this one like I know it. And I don't want, like, I remember when I was, we were doing wedding vows a couple of years ago, and I had hired one of my students to do the coordination. I was in the middle of a bunch of launches, and she did not protect me from the supplier. So I had to deal with the supplier. I had to sign paperwork through the supplier, and they required me to fax in, or like I had to physically print out the form and sign it. And I was like, this was a god awful experience. And as a wedding destination expert, like you should not have your clients having to do that. Who the heck in 2024, this is back in 2021, I think, who in 2024 should be making clients print out paperwork to sign? And I'm telling you, if you're doing that, stop it. Like you should not have anyone have to print out anything to sign it with all of the technology that exists in the day. So anyway, I'm not going to belabor the point, but I just want to show you that the suppliers and what they do, your job is to shield them from that. Like, do not make your clients have that same experience because your suppliers are behind the deal. You are the face of the business and the experience that they do. So you want to show up in that space. You want to show up as the person that can get them out of town quicker, better, and easier. So the first thing in terms of building external credibility is really about building your brand. And most people think that brand is really just logo and colors, right? I got a logo and I got a colors and I've got a name of my business, and that's the brand. And that really is not what a brand is. Brand is really around what makes you, what makes your company you, what's the story behind your vision and what that vision is to your client. Many of you guys got it. You know, a lot of advisors I work with, they show up and they're like, I sell travel, I sell fill in the blank travel, and that's what it is. But you have no definition of what that looks like, means to you, the vision of what your show up game is, right? We had a student and a member on the last time we hosted this challenge, and it was really good. She wanted to specialize in specialty tours to, I can't remember, one of the Caribbean islands, and work with clients that made like jewelry out of like the environment, like seashells. It was some sort of seashell business. And that niche and that whole vision that she had, like totally made, like, it wasn't my thing. I don't make jewelry, but for her clients, like that was unique. It's a value to the people who are participating in it. It's a value to her. And that really is going to set her apart. You know, it still like gives me goosebumps, like just talking about that, right? That's what your brand is about. It should invoke a feeling when somebody sees and hears about it and what you stand for. So it's really about the uniqueness that you bring to the marketplace, not just the fact that you sell travel. The story is so important. So what is the story? What is your story? Who are you to your business? If you are in business and you don't want to be the face of your business, you're not in the right business because we're small businesses. This is the good and the bad part of having a business in 2024. You know, when we first did our first business back in 2026, the internet wasn't what it is today, right? And you could hide behind your business name. You didn't necessarily, because people, you know, online businesses were certainly a thing in 2006, but people didn't crave the personal connection, particularly now in a post-COVID world. The reason why there's so many people who go viral and go like build that have an online connection with people is because they have a personal connection with their community. People buy from people that they know, like, and trust. And if you can tell a story about why you are selling travel and why you've picked your ideal client and why you're in business, and you've got that story and that's built around your brand, people will connect with that. And that is what really will get people to want to do business with you. Does that make sense? So if you don't consider yourself to be a storyteller, this is where like that whole transition needs to occur, because you have a story. The reason you started your business was for something. And if it's just money, you see why money is not necessarily a great story. I went in business because, again, it's really very centric, right? I went into business because I want to make more money. versus I went into business because I want to help people who want like who want to make custom jewelry, find the stuff that you need to make beautiful, unique pieces. That's a story, right? So making sure that you can articulate your story and how your story relates to your clients, that is really what brand building is about. And then after you do that, like making sure that you have a visual representation and that visual representation is consistent throughout. And that's where the colors, the logo, they're aligned. So I'm gonna give you an example that I get a lot from travel advisors is that I want a luxury travel business. But then when I look at their logo, it's like they're using comic font. They're using comic pictures, right? It's clip art. It's not luxurious. Like the visual representation of the business is not luxurious looking. So you want to have visual continuity. You want it to look according to the feeling that you want to invoke about your brand. One of the things that was super important to me when I started our coaching business for travel advisors is I wanted African American women to be able to find connection in me. All of my visuals, and it's not to say that I don't work with non-African American people. I do. I work with anybody, right? But my vision was to create and to attract minority women, because particularly in this industry, there's not a lot of faces in there. We're recruited, right? African American minority women are recruited heavily into this business, but there isn't a visual representation in the industry for minorities, even in their marketing materials. So my visual identity was to align. I wanted them to see a brown face. I wanted you to see that in my marketing imagery, right? Same thing for you. If you're working with a particular type of client, what does your marketing represent? That's what branding is about, is making sure that you connect to your client in a visual contextual way, along with your words and also along with the vision for your business. The content that you release needs to be related, not random. So, if you want luxury travel and you're talking about budget deals to Las Vegas, that's not congruent, right? It doesn't match, right? So if you're a budget dealer and you're talking about going to the Maldives, that's not congruent, right? Unless of course you can do Maldives on a budget, right? That's again, everything that you release from a content, that would be written content, visual content, audio content, video, any kind of content needs to be aligned to who you want to service, not to just general travel. We're not generalists. At least you shouldn't be trying to be a generalist, because it's very expensive to be a generalist. Does that make sense? Like your message, when you show up in the marketplace, when you create travel packages, it needs to have your ideal client in mind, and the brand needs to speak accordingly. When you collaborate and network with people, other travel professionals who are aligned to what you stand for, I love doing that. I do not believe in competition, not really. World's too big for me to be competing with, 5 people to the left of me or to the right of me, right? Because again, I am unique, and I know that I bring a unique set of skills to the table, different from them. We could literally be doing the same type of travel. I could, be coaching the same type of people, but I'm going to show up differently because I'm Sunday. There is only one Sunday, as there is only one of you. So don't be afraid to collaborate with other travel professionals. But what I would also tell you is that networking collaboration beyond travel professionals is, if you specialize, I'm going to use the lady who specializes in the trips. I can't remember which Caribbean island that she was doing. So jewelry making. So again, she was curating trips. She wanted to bring people to the island, and she would take them on special tours to do this. So working with people who do custom, who provide the supplies for custom jewelry, right? Partnering with them, collaborating with them, creating content around considerations on building custom pieces, right? That type of collaboration helps you extend your travel business beyond yourself. It also allows you to tap into other people's influence as well. All right, so winning clients' trust is critical in establishing external credibility. If you don't have a process to collect testimonials, you're missing an opportunity. That is got to be a part of your process. You need to be collecting testimonials all throughout your process. How is it to work with you? When you're first brand new, it's difficult to do that, but you definitely want to make sure that you build in a process to build out how the experience of working with you, because there's nothing more credible than someone else telling someone else that you're the bomb.com, right? That it was easy to get a design from you. So even after you do designing, you should be sending out requests for reviews. How was the process? Did you enjoy the process? Did you get what I wanted? After they come back from trips. So any major touch point that you have with the client should involve a way for you to collect testimonials. You want to also make sure that you have a professional online presence, and that does include social media. We are a social world. And so doesn't mean that you have to be on all social platforms, but whatever platform that you are going to show up on, you need to have a consistent presence on there. For years, our platform of choice was Facebook. That is where I showed up. That is what I knew. I immersed myself in understanding how Facebook worked and how it operated. After that, we moved to Pinterest. After Pinterest, we moved to, I still have never really gotten Instagram. I am not an IGer. I never pretend to be, but Instagram for travel advisors is a really great space. Our platform of choice that we're really going to be digging into this year is YouTube. So wherever you are, make sure that you have a professional online presence in there and that you show up on that platform consistently. And that also means your own asset. So I don't think it's a requirement initially for you to have a travel website, but if you do have a travel website, having your host agency's website, even if you still remain hosted, is not how you own the presence, because that's not your site. You leave that host agency, you've got to start from scratch. So if you want to have a website, invest in developing your own website, hosting your own website, and make sure that it has a professional look that matches the brand that you and the vision that you want to set for your business. An engaging personal brand really is that you provide people with a way to engage with you. Social media is the easiest and quickest way to do that, particularly with the usage of Facebook groups, communities. This is the world that we are in. Community building is so important in our business, because everybody loves to show and tell. You are in a business that people love to show and tell. So if you are attracting the same type of clients, create a community for them so that they can show and tell about their experiences with you, or the journey to get out of town, or while they're out of town, right? Make it fun for them to engage with you in your business and with other people in the same space. Good example of this is I have many clients who specialize in weddings, right? So I always tell them, if you want to specialize in weddings, this is just again an example, you want to specialize in any genre, right? Any type of client, create a YouTube channel, create a Instagram channel, create a Facebook group, right? And you start showing up in those communities and attracting people around that topic. The topic is weddings or romantic getaways, right? And so what do people love? They want to talk about romantic getaways, their wedding, and the journey of getting married and what it's like afterwards, the 1 year celebration. So really creating a brand that you can engage with your community around. There's other ways to engage with people too. Like, we engage with our community, our email list. So we are always creating content that I want to get people to respond to. The idea is that you've got some touch points, that you're having a two-way conversation with your people. I've already sort of alluded to this, which is active community involvement. Now, you have two choices here when it comes to that. You can create your own community, which I love. I am a huge community builder, or you can go into other people's community. I don't like so much going into other communities because I don't get to control the narrative. I don't get to control And does that make me a control freak? Maybe just a little bit. But when it comes to my time, I don't want to be in someone else's community and adding value, and I don't get to really control how I can interact with them. I've got all these rules and stipulations. Don't get me wrong. If you don't have the bandwidth to grow your own community, being in someone else's community is a great way to get leads, but you do have to be super strategic, and you have to make sure not to tick off the admin, right? So you just, as whatever you decide, either grow your own community or be in someone else's community, you need to be active, showing up as the expert, solving problems, providing advice, whatever, in that community of people that you're servicing. Great way to nurture and really show up as the go-to person. And ultimately, when you show up in service in communities, people will buy from you because they start to trust you. So when you start to have offers, you say, I'm going to Tahiti, and you know, I've just developed this great itinerary for Tahiti, and would you like to know more? Come, you know, fill out my travel request process. They're more likely to do that because they're familiar with your name. So client endorsements, also known as referrals, right? So the way to get more referrals is to build a referral program. You want to make sure that you're continuously getting feedback from your clients. If it's difficult to work with and you never get anybody to tell you that it's difficult to work with you, the way that you can tell that is that your numbers, your repeat business will tell the story for you, but that may be long and hard lesson for you to learn. So it's important that you operate from the mode of always selecting or soliciting feedback. Ask for genuine feedback from your clients. Make it a safe space. Send out surveys. Client surveys. How do they do? How did we do? What can we do better? Don't be afraid to get bad responses. Right now, with the internet, would I blatantly submit like what I want? If I'm new to this business and I don't know how well I'm doing, I'm probably not going to like go have people go post on my Google review, not knowing if my processes and all of that are great. I'd probably send them a survey, collect and evaluate that survey internally, make sure that, you know, we're on point, make modifications, and then I would probably implement some sort of Google review process because we knew. If you're new to this and you're just trying to get everything established, you should be asking for feedback from your clients all the time. You cannot assume that you know that what you designed works for everybody. So getting that feedback is super critical. And then when people have great stories to tell, you should be showcasing that, and that should be on rotation. Don't just showcase it once, like rotate that, like do that review. Like if you've got one review, you should be scheduling, talking about that review once a month, right? And you may think, but that's kind of redundant, but you know what? You're interacting with new people all the time. People's news feeds are inundated. They may not have seen it that first time. Maybe they didn't catch the email. Don't be afraid to reutilize the success stories that you already have repeatedly. Now, I'm not suggesting that you do it every day, the same story, but again, put it on rotation, showcase it, let people know that other people are talking about how well you are. If I had one thing to say about client endorsements that I don't do a good job, I don't do this well. We get feedback and we just are so busy moving, we don't showcase our success stories like we need to. This is critical for credibility. Utilizing social proof. I screenshot, I literally have a folder of screenshot of people telling me, oh, it was great working with you Sunday, blah, 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 right? Right? Literally getting that in rotation is something that we've got to do a better job of, but utilizing that social proof. So if you were just on your Facebook page, right, your Instagram page, and you're just talking about travel deals and you're not talking about anybody who's actually taking advantage of your travel deal and showcasing how wonderful of a job, there's a great opportunity for you to increase your credibility. Yes?
Oh, okay.
I think somebody needs to go on
You
mute.
call me?
Oh, I thought you were Tammy. No.
No problem.
Hold on, let me mute everybody. All right, so then encourage referrals. Having a referral program is so important. Make it easy for people to recommend you and reward them. Reward people for sending business your way, because that credibility, the fact that they've endorsed you, it means that your no like trust factor with that third party that just got introduced to you is higher because they trust that person. So reward referrals, give people an incentive to make referrals to you. And then celebrate client milestones, right? If you've got their birthday, you've got their anniversary, celebrate that. If it's the anniversary of them taking a trip with you, celebrate that. Let's say you did a group trip and it's the year anniversary, celebrate that, right? Remember those. I love the fact that Facebook does that whole memory. I post stuff sometimes just on Facebook, just so I can remember, I could get the memory a year from now or 2 years from now. And so you utilize that same feature that Facebook does. Does it like make you feel good when you see that? So create that in the process of the way you do social media, so that'll come back and then you can reshare it again. So all of these endorsements implied by somebody that does a direct endorsement of you or a referral or gives you a positive review are ways for you to build credibility in other people's eyes. This part of the process, a lot of people, I just expressed to you, this is something that we in our own business can do a better job of showcasing other client success stories to build credibility. Is something that if you invest the time in doing this, it's really going to help take you a long way. I was talking about Michelle yesterday, but she's a really good example in terms of brand identity, really nailing her market down and really making sure that she's a solid client and a solid brand that aligns. Her travel business is aligned to that. Everything that she does is aligned to her mom, her busy mom play dates. They just got back from Dubai, I think, or maybe I think they just were in Dubai. So she curates experiences for busy mom professionals, and the brand is all about that. She curates trips, she does local events inside, I think she's in the DMC. She hosts monthly local events for her moms. It's all about the moms, right? And so she sells travel, but it's all about her moms and creating experiences for the moms. The vision is about creating happy moms so they can be better moms to their family, right? So everything that she does is creating that experience for her moms in a way while she's selling travel. Love the concept, love the brand, love everything that she's doing in the space. And really, this is what you can do in your space as well. Build a brand that's really around your vision. Make sure that you have the internal credibility that you need in your business to set up, and then really focus on creating a client experience that aligns to it perfectly. I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes to ask any questions. Let's talk a little bit about, before we talk about the sneak peek, let's talk about the workbook. I'm going to share my screen for the workbook. All right, can everybody see my screen? Can you see the workbook? I never know if the workbook is showing. Can you guys see the workbook in my screen?
Yep, can see it.
Yeah, perfect. All right. So this workbook, again, just as a reminder, if you want the work, you want to edit the workbook, you'll just go to File and then you'll click Make a Copy, and then you can make a copy of the workbook. And really, this is intended to just sort of help you step through. Are you formed? You know, all the things that we talked about today, just go through, ask yourself these questions and fill out this, and just sort of use this as a check mark in terms of seeing how the health of your internal credibility is. And then based on where you have some gaps, these are opportunities for you to improve. And then the second page is really around your external credibility, just assessing where you are for your brand, how your online presence is, and then what you're doing in the market, in the realm of marketing, to ensure that people can see you, they find you, and they know who you are. And let me just put the, link to the workbook just in case you need it or you miss it. That is in chat again right here. And then I'm going to leave it open up for a couple of questions. And then again, if you'd like to join me in VIP, that is still available. VIP is where we can actually take a look at your travel business and we can talk about kind of where you are in the internal credibility space. If there's some things or questions that you have specifically about your business, we can address that inside of our VIP session. Tomorrow, what we're going to be doing is we are going to be talking all about sneak peek at tomorrow. We're going to be talking about traffic. How do you get in front of the people that you want? Now you want to transition. You've got to have a client getting strategy. You've got to be able to get in front of the people that you want to. We're going to talk about some secrets that you can do to get noticed. We actually have a guest speaker who's going to be talking to us all about YouTube. So if you're interested in YouTube, certainly would love to have you come tomorrow again for day 3 and learn about how you can become visible on YouTube as a channel. Let me give you the VIP if that's something that you'd like to join us on. And then I'm just going to leave it open up for questions if there's any questions really quick. And then if not, I will let you guys go and I will see you on day 3. Make sure I'm not missing anything in the chat. All right, no questions? All right, well, ladies and gents, have a wonderful rest of your day and I'll see you tomorrow, same bat channel.